30,000 men, a sea of steel and desperate fury, stand poised to shatter a kingdom's future. Against them stands a single weary king and a veteran host that should, by all logic, be overwhelmed by the sheer weight of numbers. This is the setting for the Battle of Losecote Field, an encounter where the very air feels heavy with the scent of wet earth and impending slaughter. But what follows is not the grinding carnage of a traditional medieval clash. Instead, it is a collapse so total, a panic so sudden that it becomes a legend of cowardice. By sunset, the fields will be littered, not with the dead, but with the discarded coats of an army that vanished into the mist before a single sword could be swung. Beneath this bizarre spectacle lies a hidden web of treachery that stretches into the very heart of the royal family. You are about to witness the impossible disintegration of a rebellion, and the moment a king's ruthless efficiency exposed a lie that could have ended a dynasty. This is the story of Losecote Field, where masks were stripped away. The action begins on the Great North Road, a gaping gash of mud carving through the heart of England. King Edward IV, a man who claimed his crown through blood at Towton and recently escaped the literal chains of his former mentor, leads his professional vanguard through the biting March wind. Every rhythmic clank of his men's plate armor and every muffled thud of 1,000 hooves in the mire serves as a reminder of the king's precarious grip. His knuckles are white on the hilt of his sword. Edward scans the horizon for the first signs of the Lincolnshire rebels. He knows that his former ally, the Earl of Warwick, the legendary Kingmaker, is watching from the shadows, waiting for the king to stumble. As Edward orders his men into a tight marching formation, he draws upon the brutal discipline of a decade of warfare. He knows that if he fails here, the House of York falls with him. The road ahead is uncertain, but the king's resolve is absolute as he marches toward Rutland. The tension rises like a physical weight as the royal host approaches the rolling fields. For weeks, the county of Lincolnshire has been a tinderbox, fueled by a local feud between the Wells family and the king's loyal master of horse. But this is no longer a private war. In every village square and churchyard, agents of the Kingmaker have been whispering a devastating lie, that Edward IV is coming not to bring peace, but to revoke every pardon and hang the common people by the thousands. Panic has proven to be the ultimate recruiter. From every farm and hamlet, men have flocked to the banner of Sir Robert Wells, the self-styled great captain of the commons. They march in a massive, undisciplined mass, their hearts hammered by fear and their minds clouded by Warwick's false promises. From a high ridge, Robert Wells watches the horizon, his youthful ambition bolstered by the secret letters in his baggage, letters signed by the king's own brother, the Duke of Clarence, promising the crown is within reach. Behind the scenes, a double game of staggering proportions is unfolding. Warwick and Clarence, the Kingmaker and the royal brother, maintain a mask of loyalty, writing to Edward and offering to raise their own professional retinues to crush the very rebellion they have secretly fomented. They hope to lure the king into a pincer movement, trapping him between the raw numbers of the Lincolnshire levies and the professional steel of their own men. It is a gamble with the throne of England as the ultimate prize. But Edward IV is a commander who prioritizes intelligence over arrogance. His scouts return with a report that changes everything. The rebels have changed course, moving toward Leicester to rendezvous with Warwick. The trap is revealed. The king realizes that his loyal reinforcements are actually the jaws of a snare. In a masterclass of tactical aggression, Edward accelerates his march, moving with a speed that catches his enemies off guard. He holds a trump card, Richard, Lord Wells, the rebel leader's father, and prepares to strike. The king decides to use his hostage in a final cold-blooded gambit to force the rebels to face him alone. From his camp at Fotheringhay, Edward sends a blunt messenger to the rebel lines. The message is clear. If the army does not submit immediately, the elder Lord Wells will pay the ultimate price. Young Robert Wells, caught between his ambition and his blood, blinks. He abandons the pincer strategy and turns his army back towards Stamford to face the king's veteran host without Warwick. The morning of March 12, 1470, dawns cold and grey over the village of Empingham. The two armies finally face each other across a stretch of fields known as Hornfield, straddling the Great North Road. On one side, the rebel mass, 30,000 farmers and tradesmen, many wearing the livery jackets of Warwick and Clarence. Their voices rise in a unified, defiant shout of "Our Warwick and our Clarence," confirming the names of the puppet masters for all the king's men to hear. On the other side stands the king's host, a professional corps of heavily armored men-at-arms encased in plate steel that glints like ice in the pale light. Edward IV stands under his banner of the sun in splendor, his eyes cold and focused. He does not order a charge. Instead, he orders a masterclass in psychological dominance. He commands that his prisoner, Lord Wells, be brought to the no-man's land between the lines. The air turns still as both armies watch the center ground. In full view of the rebel host and his own son, the elder Lord Wells is beheaded. It is a moment of calculated terror designed to shatter the soul of the rebellion before the first blow is struck. The rebels react not with submission, but with a surge of desperate, uncoordinated fury. They charge across the ridge, their cries echoing over the mud. But Edward is ready. He gives the order that will define the battle, the signal for his field artillery to fire its volley. The Yorkist cannons, the long bronze-cast serpentines, roar to life with a sound like the wrath of God. A single concentrated barrage of iron and lead balls smashes into the advancing rebel mass. The sensory shock is absolute. To men who have never heard the professional boom of a cannonade, the sound is an existential threat. The smoke from the corn powder hangs thick in the damp air, obscuring the battlefield in a sulphurous shroud. The rebel front line does not buckle, it simply freezes. As the king's armored knights begin their disciplined, rhythmic advance, the psychological weight of the execution and the technological disparity becomes too much to bear. The 30,000 men of Lincolnshire do not retreat, they dissolve. What follows is the most famous rout in the history of the Wars of the Roses. The panic spreads through the rebel assembly like a contagion. Thousands of men turn and run in every direction, throwing down their bills and bows in a desperate attempt to save their lives. Then, the legend is born. Fearing that their livery jackets, embroidered with the bear and ragged staff of Warwick or the black bull of Clarence, will serve as evidence of their treason, the fleeing men begin to tear off their coats. They litter the fields of Rutland with discarded clothing, casting off their very identities in a desperate bid to blend back into the peasantry. The royalist soldiers do not pursue with the intent of a massacre. Edward seeks to spare the common men. Within 45 minutes, an uprising that had threatened to unseat a king has been reduced to a landscape of abandoned garments and scattered fugitives. The Battle of Losecote Field earns its name not from the blood spilled, but from the identities shed in the mud. While folklore points to the coats, historians look to a humbler source, the Old English term Losecote, meaning pigsty cottage. Regardless of the name's origin, the emotional truth remains. Loyalty was discarded as easily as a jacket. In the immediate aftermath, the king's soldiers searched the baggage train abandoned by the rebel leaders near the Great North Road. They find a small wooden chest belonging to Sir Robert Wells. Inside, they discover the smoking gun Edward needs to secure his throne, a cache of incriminating letters. These documents contain the specific instructions of the Duke of Clarence and the Earl of Warwick, detailing their support for the uprising and their ultimate goal, to depose Edward and place Clarence on the throne. The betrayal is no longer a suspicion, it is a proven fact. Following his capture, a defeated Robert Wells is brought before the king. Faced with the evidence of his own baggage and the reality of his father's death, he makes a full confession. He names Warwick and Clarence as the partners and chief provokers of the entire rebellion, admitting the men of Lincolnshire would never have dared to rise without the comforts of the Kingmaker. The double game is finally over. The news of the total collapse at Losecote Field and the discovery of the letters reaches Warwick and Clarence with devastating speed. Realizing they are now legally outmaneuvered and militarily exposed, they abandon their remaining troops and begin a frantic flight toward the coast. Their retreat is a series of humiliations that shatter the myth of Warwick's invincibility. They reach the port of Dartmouth, barely staying ahead of the king's scouts, and scramble onto ships to sail for the safety of Calais. Tragedy strikes at sea as the garrison at Calais refuses them entry, firing harbour guns at their former master. Warwick's daughter, Isabel, goes into labour on the storm-tossed deck without a midwife. Her child is stillborn and buried at sea, adding personal bitterness to their political exile. The Kingmaker and the royal brother are forced to seek refuge with their mortal enemies, setting the stage for the bloodiest phase of the war. Losecote Field was the spark that ignited the final struggle. The Battle of Losecote Field serves as a timeless reminder that history is often decided by the noise of fear and the discovery of a single hidden truth. It was the moment when a king's ruthless efficiency exposed a devastating lie and shattered a powerful alliance. If you enjoyed this journey into the conspiracies of the past and want to uncover more forgotten chapters of history, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for watching.